Chapter 1433. Those eyes that were filled with hope made Jing Yu smile faintly. How could I bear to kill you? Nail you. I want you to live a life worse than death. Jing Yu's golden-green eyes flashed with a cold light. Those eyes that were filled with killing intent made Yun Jing and Jie Yi's bodies tremble uncontrollably. Nail Yu looked at Jing Yu in horror. The look in her eyes made Jing Yu smile. Do you still remember what you did to me? Jing Yu looked at Nail Yu and said coldly, I remember it very clearly. Miss Nailin, the first time we met, you gave me a big gift. I wonder if Miss Nailin still remembers what happened in the brothel? Jing Yu's smile was so cold. The smile in Jing Yu's eyes was also so casual. I've said it before. What you owe me, I want you to pay it back 1,000 times over. Jing Yu looked down at Nailin Yu and said, I've prepared over 100 men to serve you. Miss Nailin, you have to hold on. No. Nailin Yu heard Jing Yu's words and her eyes widened in an instant. Her face was filled with fear. Take them away and serve Miss Nailin well. Jing Yu looked at Nailin Yu's appearance and the corners of her mouth slowly curled up. She calmly spat out these words and watched as Nailin Yu was dragged away in another direction. Jing Yu stood in place without moving. She heard Nailin Yu's cries. These cries were so clear that Jing Yu wasn't in a hurry. She moved a chair to the side and sat down, listening to Nailin Yu's hoarse cries. The cries continued and Jing Yu slowly lowered her head. When she heard the cries stop, Jing Yu nodded in satisfaction and walked towards Jie Yi and Yun Jing. When Yun Jing and Jie Yi saw Jing Yu walking towards them, the two of them involuntarily took a step back. They looked at Jing Yu with some fear. The look in their eyes made Jing Yu slowly raise the corners of her mouth. Don't worry, I won't kill you. Jing Yu smiled faintly and said, After all, I still have a few words that I need you two to help me pass to the poison sect and the Holy Family. What do you want? Jie Yi looked at Jing Yu with some unease. Jing Yu heard Jie Yi's words and walked towards the cage and stood. The corners of her lips slowly raised as she said, The Holy Family's third elder. The Holy Family's Jie Yi. I recognize you. Jing Yu slowly crouched down in front of Jie Yi's cage and smiled at him. You were there when I was cremated on the altar, weren't you? Now that you see me standing in front of you, unharmed, how do you feel? Don't think that you've won just because you've killed this old man. When Jie Yi heard Jing Yu's words, his eyes filled with rage. Killed just you? Jing Yu looked like she'd heard the funniest joke in the world. She stood up and viciously kicked the cage with a loud bang. Even if I slaughter your entire Holy Family, it won't be enough to appease the hatred in my heart. The look in Jing Yu's eyes was so intense. The fierce look in her eyes made Jie Yi's heart contract fiercely at this moment. Chapter 1434. Holy Family! Holy Family! Jing Yu raised her hand and grabbed the iron cage as she shouted angrily, Do you know that back then, I had good intentions in my heart? All I wanted was to kill that old bastard Yanqin and avenge my father's death. I never thought that your Holy Family would go to this extent. Jing Yu tightened her grip on the iron cage as she slowly said, You're even more disgusting than the people outside. You did it with your own hands. You broke my good intentions. Go back and tell Yun Wei Jun. Tell Qin Bai. Jing Yu's golden-green eyes flashed with monstrous killing intent as she stared fixedly at Jie Yi and said, Jing Yu, will destroy your Holy Family. Remember what I said today. There will be a day when I return to the Holy Family. Your Holy Family will not be spared, Jing Yu said as she waved her hand again. The guards beside her stepped forward and opened the iron cage's door. Break one of his arms and legs. Crawl back. Jing Yu coldly spat out these words. Jie Yi's eyes suddenly widened. He didn't even have time to speak before he spat out a miserable cry. Crack. The guards behind him used incomparably precise strength. The bones in one of Jie Yi's arms and legs were all broken. A shocking scream rang out as Jie Yi almost fainted from the pain. Jing Yu waved her hand slightly and the guards mercilessly dragged Jie Yi away. Now it's your turn. Jing Yu's eyes turned slightly and landed on Yun Jing. After seeing Nailin Yu and Jie Yi's miserable state, Yunjing could be said to be a bird startled by the twang of a bough. Seeing Jingyu approach, he silently took a step back. Jingyu watched Yunjing's actions as a trace of a smile slowly appeared in her eyes. She said, "I want you to send a message to the poison sect." What? Yunjing looked at Jingyu and felt a lump in his throat as he spoke uneasily. "I'll take Nailin Yu's life. From today onwards, if one person from the poison sect comes, I'll kill one. If two people come, I'll kill two. If they anger me, then let Yun Tian wash his neck and wait. The poison sect will become the second holy family." After saying this calmly, Jingyu looked at Yunjing with a smile and said, "Do you want to cripple one of your hands? Or do you want me to cripple one of your hands and one of your feet?" Yunjing's eyes widened when he heard Jingyu's words. Looking up at Jingyu's serious expression, Yunjing's heart suddenly trembled uncontrollably. This was strange eyes, this was Jingyu. Yunjing's eyes were filled with bitterness as he slowly raised his left hand. His fingers trembled slightly. He looked up at Jingyu and saw the icy light reflected in Jingyu's icy eyes. Yunjing fiercely gritted his teeth and fiercely moved. The crisp sound of bones breaking rang out. Even the tendons in his left hand were broken. Jingyu said to break his arm, not break it. Yunjing didn't dare to be lazy in the slightest. The strength he used made Jingyu very satisfied. She nodded slowly and had someone open the cell door. Yunjing's forehead was covered in sweat. The intense pain in his arm made Yunjing's face pale, but he didn't dare to say a word. Chapter 1435. Before he left, Yunjing tilted his head slightly and looked deeply at Jingyu. Then, he hugged his broken arm and turned to leave. The prison regained its silence. Jingyu faintly curled her lips and walked out. Just as she was about to leave, she suddenly turned her head and said to the guard, "Be careful of Nailin Yu. Don't let her die." The guard immediately bowed his head. Jingyu nodded and turned to leave. In the dimly lit dungeon, there was a small room where more than 10 naked men were gathered. Under these men, Nailin Yu's clothes had already been stripped off and she was being wantonly ravaged by one man after another. Nailin Yu's initial resistance and screams had now completely lost her voice. She lay on the ground motionless and tears flowed out from her lifeless eyes. Jingyu returned to the surface and did not say a word about what had happened underground. After a few days of rest, the day of departure had finally arrived. Jingyu looked at the army gathering and her eyes were filled with longing. So, once all of this was over, there would be nothing left to do. Jingyu slowly curled her lips and turned her head to look at Xiao Chen. Seeing the side of Xiao Chen's face, she was a little dazed for a moment. There had been too many ups and downs between the two of them. She hoped that from now on, there would be no more separation. Jingyu faintly smiled and turned to enter the room. After packing her things, Xiao Yuling and Lu Miaoqiu came to send her off. Parting was always sad. Xiao Chen and Xiao Yuling were talking, but Jingyu and Lu Miaoqiu were talking. "Miaoqiu, I'm leaving," Jingyu slowly said as she looked at Lu Miaoqiu with a complicated look in her eyes. "Be careful." Lu Miaoqiu looked deeply at Jingyu and said. Jingyu paused and looked at Lu Miaoqiu. "If you want to leave, then go to Northern Shepherd. I have property there." Jingyu looked at Lu Miaoqiu and said slowly. "Okay." Lu Miaoqiu's heart skipped a beat when she heard Jingyu's reply. She pursed her lips and remained silent. "Let's go." Jingyu and Xiao Chen mounted their horses and led the Tokyo troops towards Yushur Pass. Everyone in the imperial city looked towards Jingyu and Xiao Chen. Seeing the departing figures of the two, everyone had complicated looks in their eyes. From the looks of it, it seemed like something was changing. The originally peaceful four kingdoms were also quietly changing. Before anyone could notice, the changes were getting bigger and bigger. The sun rose and Jingyu walked on the road. Autumn was over and winter was coming. Looking at the warm sun, Jingyu revealed a faint smile. Jingyu turned her head slightly and looked at the imperial city that was getting further and further away. Her eyes were filled with longing. This was the second time she had left her hometown in such a hurry. Jingyu had a faint smile in her eyes and didn't say anything. She turned her head and looked at the road in front of her as she strode forward. The road ahead seemed to be much clearer under the sunlight. Jing Yu's golden-green eyes were dazzling under the sunlight. Jing Yu revealed a faint smile and looked at Xiao Chen. Chapter 1436. When the sunlight shone on Xiao Chen's face, it was as if Xiao Chen's face was covered in a layer of golden light. "Why are you looking at me?" Xiao Chen felt Jing Yu's gaze and turned his head slightly to look at Jing Yu as he asked with a smile. "I like to look." Jing Yu met Xiao Chen's gaze and slowly uttered these 3 words. This made the corners of Xiao Chen's mouth curl up unconsciously. He then turned his head and said, "If you like to look, then look. If I look at you, you have to look at me too." Jing Yu saw Xiao Chen turn his head and immediately frowned unhappily. "I'm afraid that if I look at you for a few more seconds, I won't be able to resist the urge to hug you." Xiao Chen was silent for a moment before he slowly uttered these words. Jing Yu was slightly taken aback and turned her head to smile. "Xiao Chen, your sweet-talking is getting better and better." Jing Yu's eyes were tinged with a faint smile. "I'm only saying it to you." Xiao Chen replied again. Cough, cough, cough. Xing Yi, who was behind them, couldn't listen anymore. There were countless soldiers behind them. The 2 of them were so brazen in their sweet-talking. Couldn't they consider the feelings of others? "Oh, I forgot." Jing Yu turned her head to look at Xing Yi and said, "You have to protect a single dog." What? When Xing Yi heard Jing Yu's words, the corners of his mouth twitched violently. His expression suddenly darkened and the way he looked at Jing Yu changed. Jing Yu blinked her eyes and looked at Xing Yi as she said, "Woof, ha." The soldiers behind them didn't know which one of them couldn't help but laugh out loud. Instantly, as if there was a chain reaction, everyone started laughing. Xing Yi looked at Jing Yu with hidden bitterness and silently rode his horse to the back. "Since I can't afford to offend you, can't I just hide?" Jing Yu and Xiao Chen's group walked and stopped several times before arriving at Jade Pass. Jade Pass was a place that held many memories for Jing Yu. Jing Yu, Xiao Chen, and the rest finally arrived at Jade Pass. To their surprise, they saw rows of figures standing outside Jade Pass. "Greetings to the 9th Emperors. 9th Imperial Concubine." The soldiers standing outside Jade Pass suddenly knelt on the ground and shouted loudly, giving Jing Yu a fright. "You guys are..." Xiao Chen was also puzzled. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen both dismounted and raised their brows in surprise when they saw the people walking over. How could Jing Yu not recognize the leader? It's rare for the 9th Imperial Concubine to still recognize me. When Hao Yu saw Jing Yu, he happily bowed slightly and said, "This official received an imperial decree saying that the 9th Emperors and the 9th Imperial Concubine will be passing by this place. This official is here to welcome them." "Oh, so it's the Emperor." Jing Yu nodded in realization. She looked at Hao Yu and said, "How thoughtful of you. Let the soldiers rise." "These people are?" Xiao Chen looked at these people and frowned slightly as he asked. "These people want to follow the 9th Emperors to the battlefield." Hao Yu said excitedly, "As a Tokyo man, it's my responsibility to protect the country. This is this official's transfer order. The Emperor has already approved it." Hao Yu's eyes were filled with excitement as he said this. He handed the memorial to Xiao Chen. Xiao Chen frowned slightly as he took it and quickly scanned it. He handed it back to Hao Yu and said, "This king understands. Integrate these soldiers into the army." Chapter 1437. Yes. Hao Yu's eyes were filled with joy when he heard this, and he abruptly agreed. Jing Yu watched Hao Yu's actions as he followed Xiao Chen into the Jade Gate. She had a puzzled expression as she said, "Didn't this guy shout about killing evildoers and rebels before? Why is he so attentive now? Could it be that he's plotting something?" Xiao Chen glanced at Jing Yu and said, "You're thinking too much. There's nothing going on." "But I still feel that it's very strange." Jing Yu frowned in confusion. However, when Jing Yu arrived at the city lord's mansion and saw the city lord's wife, Jing Yu immediately understood what was going on. The young woman who was standing at the door to welcome Jing Yu and Xiao Chen was as beautiful as a flower. She even had a big belly. She smiled at Jing Yu and said, "Miss Jing Yu, long time no see." The gentleness in her voice caused Jingyu to be stunned. The person in front of him was none other than the eldest young miss of the Fallen Moon Villa, Qin Rushen. At that time, he knew that Hao Yu had feelings for Qin Rushen. Naturally, Jingyu had heard about it. Jingyu and Qin Rushen met in Yangzhou City. The world music gathering was still vivid in her mind. Jingyu was only able to escape Yangzhou City because of Qin Rushen's help. She didn't expect that the next time they met, it would be like this. Madam Hao. Jingyu originally wanted to call her young Miss Qin, but after thinking about it, she couldn't call her young Miss Qin anymore. However, calling her Madam Hao seemed a bit strange. She had no choice but to call her Madam Hao again, City Lord's wife. Ninth Imperial Concubine, there's no need to be so polite. Come in and sit. Qin Rushen warmly welcomed Jingyu and Xiao Chen into the mansion. Seeing Qin Rushen acting like a person from the pugilistic world, Jingyu's eyes were tinged with a faint smile. Xiao Chen sat for a while before leaving with Hao Yu. Jingyu and Qin Rushen continued to stay in the room and chat. Men had their men's matters, and women had their women's topics. How many months is the child in the womb? Jingyu looked at Qin Rushen's obviously bulging belly with curiosity as she asked. Almost 6 months. Qin Rushen raised her hand and rubbed her belly and said, "This little fella really tormented me. I can't do anything after getting pregnant. I've been annoyed for a long time." Qin Rushen had a look as she spoke. However, her eyes were filled with joy. When Jingyu saw Qin Rushen's expression, the corners of her lips curled into a faint smile. You've been married to the 9th emperors for so long. When do you plan to have a child? Qin Rushen paused and looked at Jingyu in confusion. We'll talk about it when the matter is over. Jingyu seemed to have thought of something when she heard Qin Rushen's question. She asked with an unnatural expression, "Your child is about to be born. Why did you agree to let Hao Yu go to the battlefield? A man's ambition is to travel far." Qin Rushen slowly said, "Now that the Tokyo is in trouble, how can a Tokyo's son hide in this peaceful nest?" Qin Rushen looked at Jingyu and said, "I was the one who let him go. He won't be a Tokyo's son if he goes to the battlefield to kill the enemy." Qin Rushen's eyes were filled with pride. Jingyu's heart trembled when she heard Qin Rushen's words. She smiled and said to Qin Rushen, "Don't worry, I'll bring Hao Yu back safely." Chapter 1438. Swords and sabers don't speak on the battlefield. Whether he lives or dies, it all depends on his abilities. Qin Rushen didn't seem to care, but Jingyu noticed that Qin Rushen's hands clenched slightly. Whether he lives or dies, my child and I will wait for him to return. Qin Rushen's words echoed in Jingyu's ears before Jingyu left. The night of rest in Jade Pass was also the night when the soldiers of Jade Pass bid farewell to their families and set off on their journey. Jingyu turned her head slightly and saw Qin Rushen standing on the wall of Jade Stone Pass with the brightest smile on her face as she watched everyone leave. When everyone and the army disappeared, Qin Rushen's suppressed tears finally flowed out of her eyes. At first, Hao Yu's mood was still a little low. Now that they had just parted, he began to miss his wife and his child. However, as the journey became more and more distant, Hao Yu knew that he shouldn't be thinking about these things. Instead, he should be thinking about that unknown battle. The march seemed to be very solemn, but it wasn't without joy. When men gathered together, they would naturally talk about women. Those men talked about all sorts of things to ease the boredom and hardship of the journey. Jingyu stood on the hill and sighed deeply as she looked at the winding road. Xiao Chen stood behind Jingyu and narrowed his eyes as he followed Jingyu's gaze. We will reach Yangquan City in about 10 days. Shangguan Linglan and Helian Theo are already waiting there, Xiao Chen said slowly as he stood in front of Jingyu. Okay. Jingyu nodded when she heard Xiao Chen's words. There was a faint warmth in her eyes. After such a long time, she was finally going to see Shangguan Linglan, Jingyu, and the others. She was very excited. Outside Yangquan City was a piece of flat land, and further ahead, they could see a desert. The wind in the desert was very strong, and it was even colder in winter. When Jingyu and Xiao Chen arrived at Yangquan City with a group of soldiers, the first thing they saw was the majestic Yangquan City. The buildings in Yangkuan City were simple and tall. It was located at the border between Tokyo and Nanli, and the soldiers of Tokyo were stationed there. When Xiao Chen and Jing Yu arrived, it was already snowing. The snowflakes were very small, and they mixed with the cold wind and blew into Jing Yu's cloak. Jing Yu sat high on her horse and watched the tightly shut city gates slowly open. The group of people walking out was very familiar, and the expression in Jing Yu's eyes changed little by little. "Big brother, Linglan." Jing Yu jumped off her horse and walked toward Shengguan Linglan and Jing Lang, her eyes filled with surprise. When Jing Lang saw Jing Yu, he walked over with big strides. He never thought that they would meet again after such a long time. Jing Yu's golden-green eyes were fixed on Jing Lang and Shengguan Linglan, full of joy. In Yangkuan City, everyone was gathered. After drinking and chatting merrily, the snow outside became heavier. Linglan, Jing Yu stood at the side of the corridor and looked at Shengguan Linglan, sighing deeply. "It's good that you're back." Shengguan Linglan raised his cup to Jing Yu. Jing Yu looked at Shengguan Linglan's appearance. Shanghai Linglan's soft armor was still there. She didn't know when it started, but the little girl from the imperial city had grown up. Chapter 1439. The little girl who said she wanted to ride a horse was now a general of an army. The domineering aura she exuded was still as intimidating as before. "Ning Xiangyuan is dead." Jing Yu stared at Shengguan Linglan for a long time before she finally said. Shengguan Linglan's hands trembled when she heard Jing Yu's words. She had already received the news before Jing Yu and Xiao Chen arrived. However, it was not as shocking as hearing it from Jing Yu's mouth. Shengguan Linglan opened her mouth slightly as if she wanted to say something. However, she couldn't find the words to say. She felt her throat dry up and she couldn't say anything. "She took poison and died right in front of me." Jing Yu lowered her head and said slowly. Then, she raised her hand and took a sip of wine. She tilted her head slightly and said, "She regretted it before she died. Unfortunately, it was too late." Shengguan Linglan heard Jing Yu's words and slowly lowered her head. She poured herself a cup of wine and said, "It's good that she's dead." Jing Yu turned her head slightly when she heard Shengguan Linglan's words. "Linglan, what happened to you after the battle in Jinling?" Jing Yu seemed to have thought of something. Although she knew that Shengguan Linglan and the others were outside, she didn't know the details. Jing Yu still wanted to ask. "There's nothing left." Shengguan Linglan slowly shook her head and said, "Tokyo and Nanli's troops were slaughtered by the beasts. The Holy Family's goal was to take you away. The people from Yaojiang took away the 9 emperors, and the people from the family of musical attack took away Yi Shui. The rest of us are recuperating in Jinling. The vitality of the 4 countries is greatly damaged. How can we have the strength to fight again?" Shengguan Linglan said calmly. "We wanted to contact you and the 9th emperors, but we were unable to find the location of the Holy Family. The people we sent to the Tokyo Emperor to search for the 9th emperors also never returned. At that time, we knew that something had happened. Therefore, after hearing the news, they immediately retreated from Jinling and hid in the Roman forest." Shengguan Linglan turned to look at Jing Yu and said, "Helion Theo took the rest of the northern pastoral troops back to the northern pastoral region. We are recuperating in the Roman forest. I know that you will come back. The 9th emperors will come back." Shengguan Linglan looked at Jing Yu and said, "Fortunately, there are Yin Jian and Yin Feng guarding the forest. Otherwise, I'm afraid that there will be trouble. Without you, we won't be safe in the depths of the Roman forest. Fortunately, Li Weiming and the others are guarding the forest. Yin Jian and Yin Feng are also guarding the forest. Zhang Hua and I are still very close." Yin Jian and Yin Feng? Jing Yu's eyes revealed a hint of surprise. So it turned out that the conflict between her, Yin Jian, and Yin Feng wasn't because of their different pupils? "The 2 gray wolves have been following me for so long. Even without the control of the pupils, they are close to me." Shengguan Ling seemed to know what Jing Yu was thinking. The corners of his mouth curled up slightly as he said with a faint smile, "That's true." Jing Yu smiled and nodded. Then, as if she thought of something, she turned to Shengguan Linglan and said, "Then how did you guys get here?" Chapter 1440. It was Interrogation Unit 1 who sent a message to Interrogation Unit 2, telling us about your operation. That's why we brought the soldiers over. Shangguan Linglan turned his head slightly. Jing Yu followed Shanghai Linglan's gaze and saw Xing Yi and Xing Er talking to each other. Jing Yu's lips curled up slightly when she saw the way the two of them were talking. How are you and Xing Er doing? Jing Yu seemed to have thought of something as she looked away and asked. Pretty good. Shangguan Linglan seemed to have thought of something as his lips curled up slightly and he said, but sometimes I don't feel good. What's wrong? When Jing Yu heard Shangguan Linglan's reply, she turned her head in surprise. She saw Shangguan Linglan lean back slightly and slowly close his eyes. It seemed like he didn't want to say anything, but at the same time, he seemed to be thinking about how to say it. Jing Yu, don't you feel the same way? Shangguan Linglan opened his eyes and looked at Jing Yu as he said seriously, in a situation where we could be separated by life and death at any time, I really don't know what to do. If there comes a day when I have to bury someone I love, or someone who loves me deeply, I don't even dare to imagine such a scene. Shangguan Linglan's face was slightly pale as he looked at Jing Yu and said, what do you think I should do? When Jing Yu heard Shangguan Linglan's words, she slowly fell silent. Then, she seemed to have thought of something and her expression changed slightly. The atmosphere around the two of them became silent. Jing Yu turned her head and looked at Shangguan Linglan. So what do you plan to do now? Jing Yu pursed her lips slightly and asked. I don't know either. Shangguan Linglan looked at Xing Er again. Xing Er seemed to have sensed something as he tilted his head slightly to look at Shangguan Linglan. Those dark and calm eyes only had Shanghai Linglan in them. At the very least, I managed to stop myself before I got too deep into it. Shangguan Linglan received Xing Er's gaze and lowered his head uneasily. Then, he turned his head and said to Jing Yu. Jing Yu looked at Shangguan Linglan for a long time and suddenly burst into laughter. Haha. Jing Yu's laughter was so clear and loud that it stunned the extremely frustrated Shangguan Linglan. Did she say something funny? What are you laughing at? Shangguan Linglan frowned unhappily. Linglan, you really haven't fallen in love with someone yet. Jing Yu stood up and patted Shangguan Linglan's shoulder meaningfully as she said, when you really fall in love with someone, you will feel that you will cherish every moment you spend with him with your life. Because you don't know whether he will disappear in the next second. Jing Yu slowly looked at the falling snowflakes outside and said, all I can do is to cherish every second I spend with him because I love him. The kind of love that you will never regret. Jing Yu tilted her head and looked at Shangguan Linglan. Then, she smiled brightly and said, you say that you will live and die together, but when the time comes, all you will think about is how to make sure the other person lives. That kind of feeling, do you understand? Jing Yu said softly. Shangguan Linglan froze on the spot. A long time after Jing Yu left, Shangguan Linglan was still sitting on the spot in a daze. He seemed to have been silent for a long time. It seemed like he was thinking, but it also seemed like he was in a daze. There was an unknown emotion brewing in his clear eyes. Chapter 1441. As they spoke, Jing Yu saw Xiao Chen approaching. Once again, she dived into Xiao Chen's embrace without hesitation. She hugged Xiao Chen tightly and said, this is so unfair. Why is your body so warm? Xiao Chen looked at Jing Yu, who was afraid of the cold, and his lips curled into a faint smile. He reached out and hugged Jing Yu as he said, if it was always winter, you would take the initiative to get close to me every day. Shameless. Jing Yu said in disdain. Then she said, you are just my heater. Yes, I'm happy to be your heater. Xiao Chen's lips curled up and his eyes were filled with affection. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen were being extremely affectionate over here. However, on the other side of the room, an earth-shattering scream rang out. That scream pierced through the sky. When Jing Yu rushed over, she saw Shangguan Linglan's tightly shut door. This is? Jing Yu looked at the tightly shut door and her eyes were filled with confusion. I don't know what's going on either. The servant who delivered the water was also confused. Linglan? Linglan, what's wrong? Jing Yu stepped forward and clapped her hands to call the door. However, there was no response after a long time. She was even more confused. "Don't come in." Just as Jingyu was about to push the door open, she heard such an exclamation, which made Jingyu's action of pushing the door open immediately froze. Jingyu's face darkened. Something must have happened for Shangguan Linglong to act like this. "Jingyu, come in. The rest of you leave." Finally, Shangguan Linglong spoke. Jingyu turned to look at Xiao Chen and the rest and decisively chased them away. Then she opened the door and went in. The moment she went in, she saw Shangguan Linglong sitting on the bed alone. He was hugging his blanket and looked like he had just woken up. "Linglong, what's wrong with you?" Jingyu looked at Shangguan Linglong and frowned. She stared at Shangguan Linglong and said, "Don't tell me you were drunk last night and don't know what you did?" When Shangguan Linglong heard Jingyu's words, he trembled and asked Jingyu, "What? What did I do? How would I know what you did?" Jingyu looked at Shangguan Linglong in amusement and said, "After I left, wasn't Xing Er by my side?" "Yeah. Where's Xing Er?" "Ah. Oh. What's wrong? What's wrong?" Jingyu was shocked by Shangguan Linglong's actions. She looked at Shangguan Linglong in shock and asked, "It was Xing Er who sent me back to my room. Then my clothes." Shangguan Linglong looked at Jingyu as if he was about to cry and said, "Did Xing Er help me change?" When Jingyu heard Shangguan Linglong's words, the corners of her mouth twitched and she said, "Anyway, I didn't help you change your clothes." After Jingyu said this seriously, she heard Shangguan Linglong's high-pitched scream again. The people outside the room had no idea what was going on. Xiao Chen shook his head helplessly and turned to leave. It didn't seem like a big deal and it had nothing to do with him. Chapter 1442. The snow was so heavy that they couldn't start fighting now. They could only wait for the snowstorm to pass before they could start fighting. They had to stay in Yangkuan City and plan their next step. Xiao Chen, Heli and Theo, and Jing Lang were discussing the war. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglong dawdled for a long time before they came out of the house. Shangguan Linglong didn't dare to meet Xing Er this time. He would take a detour whenever he saw Xing Er. Time passed quietly. The snowstorm was over. The war between Jingyu and Xiao Chen had finally begun. There couldn't be any delay. The only thing they could do was to end the war quickly and take down Nanli. Winter had yet to pass, and the chill in the wind was enough to make people shiver. "Is this the border of Nanli?" Jingyu stood on the hill and looked into the distance. She could see the city under the haze. That was Nanli's first border. Xiao Chen and Jingyu had to start from here and move forward bravely. "Yes, let's start our first battle here." Heli and Theo, who was wrapped in a thick robe, looked at Jingyu and said, "Are you ready?" "Of course." Jingyu smiled and nodded slowly. Perhaps she had experienced too many battles, or was she numb? Jingyu and Xiao Chen led the troops and horses. They were like a hot knife through butter. The Mahist cavalry was the most tyrannical existence in the army. They fiercely led the troops into the city. Jingyu and Xiao Chen went into battle with heavy armor. They led the troops into Nanli from the border. They didn't say anything and refused all negotiations. The flames of war were ignited in Nanli. This was revenge. This was war. From winter to spring, they took off their thick cotton-padded jackets and put on their hard armor. "Xiao Chen, come and take a look." War was cruel. The war in Nanli had caused the people of Nanli to become homeless and flee. This big country was on the verge of collapse under the influence of Xiao Chen and Jingyu. "What is it?" Xiao Chen's troops were stationed on the hill. In front of them was the last checkpoint. If they won, there would be no more obstacles in their way. "The spies have reported that the true martial city has sent more troops. The Southly Crown Prince, Mu Qinghua, has come personally." Jingyu held a letter in her hand. Her lips curled into a faint smile as she said, "In the end, you still came." Xiao Chen took the letter from Jingyu and quickly skimmed through it. His lips curled into a faint smile as he said, "That's good too. It saves us a lot of trouble. Let's fight outside the true martial city." "Are you confident?" When Jingyu heard Xiao Chen's words, a faint smile appeared in her eyes. She looked at Xiao Chen and asked with a smile, "Of course." Xiao Chen looked down at Jingyu. The determination in his dark eyes was so moving. After hearing Xiao Chen's answer, Jingyu suddenly laughed. They set up camp outside the true martial city. After a night's rest, they were greeted by the arrival of a huge army. How is it? Inside the true martial city, Mu Qinghua was wearing a suit of armor. He was sitting on a high seat with an anxious expression. He swallowed his saliva and looked at the guards who rushed in. Chapter 1443. Your Highness, run for your life. The soldier panted slightly and said, "The Tokyo and the Northern Pastoral Army are challenging us outside the city. It's finally here." Mu Qinghua's expression changed rapidly. Then she slowly spat out such a sentence. After receiving this news, all her worries and uneasiness seemed to have strangely calmed down. The expression on Jingyu's face changed rapidly. Then she suddenly smiled. "Your Highness." The guard looked a little anxious. He seemed to be able to hear the panic of the soldiers outside because of the arrival of the enemy. "Men!" Mu Qinghua suddenly stood up and shouted, "Bring this crown's armor. This crown will personally go into battle." "Your Highness, you mustn't." After hearing Mu Qinghua's words, the general who was standing at the side immediately knelt down in horror and shouted loudly. "Nan Li is in trouble. As the crown prince, how can I retreat?" Mu Qinghua looked at the general with red eyes and said, "I have already lost once. I can't lose a second time. Bring the armor." Above the true martial city, a figure slowly appeared on the high city walls. Jingyu, Xiao Chen, and the others were riding on horses. They raised their heads slightly and saw Mu Qinghua, who was wearing battle armor and holding a long sword. Mu Qinghua actually came out personally? Jingyu looked at Mu Qinghua with a funny expression. Then she seemed to have thought of something and the corner of her mouth curved into a mocking smile. "I thought this person was going to run away again." As expected of the crown prince of Nanli, Xiao Chen slowly narrowed his eyes and said, "He can't be that bad." Jingyu chuckled and said, "That's good. Today, we will wrap the crown prince's head and send it to the Nanli emperor as a gift." Jingyu's golden-green eyes flashed with indifference. Helian Xiao, Shangguan Linglan, and the others didn't feel that Jingyu's words were cruel at all. Everything that Mo Qinghua had done back then was cruel. "Kill!" Xiao Chen's eyes turned cold and he immediately ordered all the soldiers to charge toward Zhenwu City. Xiao Chen and Mu Qinghua clashed fiercely outside Zhenwu City. This was supposed to be a battle, but it was a one-sided battle. Jingyu's strange eyes were an anomaly in this battle. As for the cavalrymen in the battle, almost all of their warhorses knelt down in front of Dong Qing and the northern shepherd soldiers. Even their warhorses knelt down. How could they fight this battle? Nanli had no advantage at all. In other words, Mu Qinghua was here to die. Pooh! How could Mu Qinghua be Xiao Chen's opponent? In less than 10 moves, Xiao Chen kicked Mu Qinghua back a few steps. Jingyu looked at the battle and raised her eyebrows slightly. She raised her hand and called for a halt. The situation was completely under Helian Theo and Jingyu's control. Everyone's eyes fell on Xiao Chen and Mu Qinghua. Cough, cough, cough. Mu Qinghua covered his chest and coughed a few times. He slowly turned his head and looked at the battle. He understood that Nanli was completely defeated this time. "We lost." Mu Qinghua sighed as if she was relieved of a heavy burden. She looked at Jingyu and Xiao Chen, and a smile slowly appeared on her face. Chapter 1444. Back then I thought I could beat you. Mu Qinghua slowly straightened her body and said, "But I didn't think I would still lose to my own greed." If Nanli didn't collude with the Holy Family and the Poison Sect, would there be a different ending? Mu Qinghua asked with difficulty. Xiao Chen looked at Mu Qinghua for a long time before saying indifferently, "The ending would be the same, but the process would be different." Xiao Chen looked closely at Mu Qinghua and said, "If you didn't do those things, so many people in Nanli wouldn't have died because of you. So many soldiers in Nanli wouldn't have died. Your parents wouldn't have died." Mu Qinghua's eyes widened when she heard Xiao Chen's words. Her body trembled as she looked at Xiao Chen and said shakily, You guys actually, that's right. Jing Yu stepped forward slowly. She looked at Mu Qinghua and said, Everyone died because of you. Because of your arrogance and ruthlessness. Now that you know that your parents and relatives will die, don't you feel satisfied? Jing Yu's words were so cruel that Mu Qinghua's face turned pale when she heard Jing Yu's words. I admit defeat. I surrender. Mu Qinghua seemed to have thought of something. Her eyes were filled with fear as she looked at Jing Yu and Xiao Chen and said, I'm willing to surrender. You can't kill my parents. Ha! Jing Yu laughed loudly and said, Do you think it's too late to surrender now? Mu Qinghua's eyes were filled with fear. Don't you want to beat me? Xiao Chen slowly stepped forward and looked at Mu Qinghua calmly. I'll give you this chance. If you beat me, I'll agree to Nanli's surrender. If you lose, I'll have the Emperor of Nanli meet with you as soon as possible. Xiao Chen's words were so calm as if he was talking about eating and sleeping. However, the meaning behind his words made everyone's heart tremble violently. This was the 9th Emperor. Mu Qinghua's expression froze when she heard Xiao Chen's words. She looked at Xiao Chen's eyes. Ever since she met Xiao Chen, she had never seen any special changes in him. She looked at Xiao Chen, at Jing Yu, and everyone else. At this moment, she suddenly felt regret. Conceit and confidence were only separated by a single thought. Intelligence and stupidity were just a matter of thought. If she hadn't listened to other people's words and didn't join in the encirclement of Xiao Chen outside the pond, she wouldn't have to face such a difficult choice now. However, there was no medicine for regret in this world. Mu Qinghua looked at Xiao Chen's eyes, which were changing little by little. This was a battle that they couldn't lose, but they would definitely lose. However, she had no reason to refuse. The only thing she could do was to fight. Jing Yu, Heli and Theo, and the others silently retreated and made a circle. They watched this bloody battle and watched Mu Qinghua's bloodshot eyes. The resentment in their hearts had probably reached its peak. There was no technique to speak of in the fight. Mu Qinghua's body was covered with scars without Xiao Chen's casual moves. Jing Yu looked at this scene silently and did not say anything. Chapter 1445. The roar by his ear seemed to have faded away. The Mu Qinghua that Jing Yu had seen for the first time was dressed in luxurious clothes. Her dark eyes seemed to be filled with scheming intent no matter who she looked at. She still remembered the first time they met in the Tokyo Imperial City. Mu Qinghua's question, How did you know about our identities? Who would have thought that after so many years, the ending between us would be like this? Qi! The cold, long sword pierced through Mu Qinghua's body. Mu Qinghua knelt on the ground and lowered his head slightly. His hand gripped the long sword tightly. Blood flowed down from his mouth uncontrollably. His eyes were wide open as the veins protruded from his mouth. Lost. These were Mu Qinghua's last words. Xiao Chen looked at Mu Qinghua quietly and said slowly, Nanli was destroyed because of you. Mu Qinghua's face suddenly widened. Her eyes that were looking at Xiao Chen slowly lost their vitality. She seemed to want to say something, but in the end, she couldn't say anything. Xiao Chen coldly raised his hand and pulled out the sword. Bright red blood stained the ground. Mu Qinghua's body slowly fell backwards. Her eyes finally closed. From now on, Mu Qinghua no longer existed in this world. Zhenwu City was destroyed. Xiao Chen brought Jing Yu's troops and killed their way into the Nanli Imperial Palace. Under the pressure of thousands of troops, the imperial seal of Nanli shattered. The Emperor of Nanli committed suicide in front of the palace. The Empress hanged herself. This was the sign of a defeated country. This was the first time that Jing Yu saw a country being destroyed. The tripartite balance was broken because of this. Jing Yu didn't expect that she would come to Nanli in such a manner. The Nanli Imperial Palace was no longer bustling. Jing Yu wore her battle armor and stood in the corridor of the Nanli Imperial Palace. She stared blankly at the scorching sun. It turned out that the destruction of a country was so fragile. It was only from spring to summer, a season had passed, and this powerful country had been destroyed. What are you thinking about? Jingyu was lost in thought as she looked at the distant horizon. Shangguan Linglan's voice came from behind her. Jingyu turned to look and saw Shanghai Linglan lowering his head. "I'm thinking." Jingyu paused for a moment. Then, as if she was reminiscing, she said, "Humans are too weak. Will there be a day when someone even stronger will destroy us?" "Ha." Shangguan Linglan laughed heartily and patted Jingyu's shoulder. His eyes were shining as he said, "If you're worried about this, then do your best to climb up and become the most powerful person in the world." Jingyu couldn't help but laugh. She looked at Shangguan Linglan's back as the corners of her mouth slowly curved upwards. "In my lifetime, it's enough for me to be able to protect the people and things that I want to protect." Jingyu turned around and followed Shangguan Linglan's footsteps. They were the ones who took over Nanli. Everything in Nanli was the result of their soldiers. Xiao Chen had forbidden them from killing the elderly and children. They could eat and drink freely in Nanli's imperial city, but they couldn't violate military discipline. Xiao Chen wanted to rest for 3 to 5 days until the Tokyo's people came to control Nanli's situation before they left. Although Nanli was defeated, there was still a place that needed to be cleaned up. Perhaps there were still fish that escaped the net that needed to be cleaned up. Jingyu naturally understood what Xiao Chen meant. After such a long battle, it was time for the soldiers to rest. Chapter 1446. It was already the next day when Jingyu saw Mu Xiaoya. Mu Xiaoya, who used to be high and mighty, was now sitting in front of the palace gates in a dirty and messy palace dress. Her hands and face were covered in blood, and there were still traces of tears. The blood on her body was not hers, but that of her family. Jingyu walked up to Mu Xiaoya and stopped in front of her. Jingyu's impression of Mu Xiaoya was still from the competition in the Tokyo Imperial City. Back then, Jingyu and Mu Xiaoya's competition was the talk of the town. In Jingyu's eyes, Mu Xiaoya was a spoiled princess. She looked down on everyone, but in the end, she reminded Jingyu to be careful. This princess wasn't a bad person. But now, she had experienced such a thing. Mu Xiaoya seemed to have sensed someone standing in front of her. Her dazed eyes turned slightly and she looked up at Jingyu. When she saw Jingyu, the light in her eyes slowly returned to normal. "Are you satisfied now?" Mu Xiaoya's smile widened as tears slowly rolled down her cheeks. "Crown Prince plotted against your life, and now, he has paid with his life, the lives of his parents, and the entire Nanli." Mu Xiaoya looked quietly at Jingyu and said, "I tried my best to persuade him, but, in the end, I couldn't stop him." Jingyu looked at Mu Xiaoya and felt as if a thorn was stuck in her throat. She couldn't say a word. "It's all my fault." Mu Xiaoya pursed her lips and said, "I shouldn't have insisted on going to the Tokyo to see the 9th emperors. I shouldn't have gone with Crown Prince. If Crown Prince hadn't gone to the Tokyo, none of this would have happened. Let's eat something." Jingyu lowered her head slightly and passed the item in her hand to Mu Xiaoya. Mu Xiaoya looked at the item in Jingyu's hand but didn't reach out to take it. "Mu Xiaoya, remember this." Jingyu placed the items in front of Mu Xiaoya. She stood up slowly and said, "I killed your brother and your parents. I forced them to their deaths. I also destroyed your country with my own hands. Remember my name forever. My name is Jingyu. I'll be waiting for you to take your revenge." Jingyu looked at Mu Xiaoya with her golden eyes and said, "If you commit suicide and follow your parents, I will not say anything to you. If you walk out of this palace and live on with a vengeful heart, I will respect you." Jingyu slowly turned to leave and said, "Mu Xiaoya, I'll be waiting for you to tell me what you've said today." With that, Jingyu turned and left. Mu Xiaoya trembled as she looked at Jingyu's departing back. Death wasn't scary. What was scary was living a life worse than death. Jingyu successfully let Mu Xiaoya live on with a heart full of hatred. "But why did you do this?" Mu Xiaoya's heart was filled with a desire to die. However, after hearing what Jingyu, her enemy, said, she trembled violently. There was a strong voice in her heart telling her that she couldn't die. She had to take revenge. She had killed her own family. If she died, she would have nothing left. Even her life would be gone. How could she live on? Her country was destroyed and her people were dead. She had nothing left but her life and her heart full of hatred. Mu Xiaoye wailed loudly in front of the palace gate. She cried herself hoarse. Chapter 1447. Jing Yu watched from a distance. She watched as Mu Xiaoye finished crying, picked up the steamed bun, and ate it like a madwoman. Because she ate too quickly, she choked and coughed violently. Her tear-stained face and trembling body were trying her best to survive at this moment. Jing Yu watched as Mu Xiaoye knelt and kowtowed in front of the palace gates. Then, she dragged her swaying body away step by step. "Why are you doing this?" Xiao Qun stood beside Jing Yu. He didn't understand why Jing Yu did this. "Because..." Jing Yu pursed her lips and said, "Because she told me to be careful. But I'm giving her a life." Jing Yu said slowly. Xiao Chen's body shook violently when he heard Jing Yu's words. Then he seemed to have thought of something. He looked at Mu Xiaoye's departing figure, then turned to look at Jing Yu. Looking at Jing Yu's golden eyes under the sunlight, he slowly curved his lips. This was probably the reason why he fell in love with her. After the incident in Nanli came to an end, Xiao Chen and Xing Er were busy. Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan, on the other hand, had nothing to do. In their free time, the two of them went on a tour of Nanli's palace and commented on it. It was quite interesting. "What is this place?" Shangguan Linglan and Jing Yu didn't know where they were. Suddenly, they turned into a palace with very high walls. They saw that the door had been smashed, but it didn't seem to have been broken open. The two of them were instantly interested. "Let's go in and take a look." Jing Yu turned to look at Shangguan Linglan and said excitedly, "What if it's Nan Li's treasure trove?" "Let's go." Shangguan Linglan originally didn't want to go in. However, when Jing Yu said this, Shanghai Linglan looked at Jing Yu resolutely. Then, he took the lead to look at the wall. "This wall is too high," Shangguan Linglan said angrily. "We can't go up." Jing Yu looked at the smooth wall with a conflicted expression. After thinking about it, she waved at Shangguan Linglan and said, "Let's go in and take a look. Maybe we can climb a tree." Shangguan Linglan nodded and followed Jing Yu around. Finally, they saw a tree. The two of them climbed over the wall and jumped down from the top of the wall into the palace. The two of them walked in the direction of the door. When they arrived at the door, they were stunned. No wonder the door couldn't be broken open. Jing Yu looked at the door that was completely nailed shut and the corners of her mouth twitched. "What kind of people live in here? Why did you seal the palace gate?" Jing Yu's eyes were filled with confusion. She turned to look at the architecture of the palace. It looked pretty good. It seemed like someone cleaned it every day. Looking at the clean floor, Jing Yu frowned in confusion. Jing Yu looked at Just as Jing Yu was looking at the architecture, Shangguan Linglan suddenly grabbed Jing Yu's arm excitedly and called out. Jing Yu followed Shangguan Linglan's gaze and was stunned by the scenery in front of her. The garden in the courtyard was filled with blooming peonies and all kinds of flowers. Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan walked towards the garden. It took up almost half of the space in the palace and the flowers were well taken care of. Chapter 1448. The person living here must be a woman. Jing Yu nodded her head firmly and said, "And she must be a beauty." "How do you know?" Shangguan Linglan asked with his eyes wide open when he heard Jing Yu's words. "I guessed." Jing Yu said with a smile, "A beautiful person like me loves flowers, so the person who loves flowers must be a beauty." "I say." Shangguan Linglan's mouth twitched when he heard Jing Yu's words. What kind of twisted logic is this? Just as Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan were talking, they heard a chuckle. The chuckle was so loud that Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan froze. They looked around but didn't see anyone. "I'm upstairs." The chuckle became clearer and someone spoke. Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan heard the voice and looked up. A petite figure was lying on the windowsill and blinking her eyes at Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan. "Who are you? Why are you here?" The little girl was about 12 or 13 years old. She blinked her eyes and asked Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan. "That?" Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan looked at each other in surprise. They frowned and asked the little girl, "Who are you? Why are you here?" I'm here to serve Her Highness. The little girl said happily, lower your voices. Her Highness is asleep. Don't disturb her. What the hell? Jing Yu's mouth twitched when she heard the little girl's words. Her eyes were filled with confusion. Who are you talking to? Just as Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglong were in a daze, a light voice sounded. It sounded like the warmth of someone who had just woken up. The moment the voice sounded, the three of them were stunned. It's over. Her Highness is awake. The little girl's expression changed. She hurriedly turned around and walked into the room. Her Highness, there are two older sisters outside. There's someone who would appear here. Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglong raised their heads and stood on the spot. They heard the intermittent voice, and then under Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglong's gaze, they saw the figure that appeared in front of them. It was a girl in the prime of her youth dressed in snow-white robes. She slowly appeared in front of the window. Her face was revealed. Her fine black hair was casually tied up with a jade hairpin. A pair of pitch-black eyes quietly looked at Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglong. The moment the girl appeared, the two of them widened their eyes. Their eyes were filled with astonishment, followed by amazement. Could this be a celestial maiden? Look at those eyes, look at those eyes, look at that mouth, look at that nose. It was simply perfect. Jing Yu had lived 2 lives, but this was the first time she had seen such a beautiful girl. Was this the legendary celestial maiden that had descended to the mortal world? This must be the type of femme fatale. She was the Lolidragon type, the type that couldn't be forgotten with a single glance. Miss? Ladies? Jing Yu hurriedly returned to her senses when she heard a voice calling out to her. She cast aside her wild thoughts. Jing Yu quietly replied. At this moment, they were already seated in the room. The girl in white was sitting opposite Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglong. She was pouring tea for the two of them. She looked at Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglong and couldn't help but smile. Chapter 1449. Cough cough. Jing Yu probably felt that she had lost her composure and coughed awkwardly. How should I address you? I heard the little girl say that you're Nan Li's imperial concubine? The woman raised her hand and pushed the teacup in her hand towards Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglong. She said, I'm an imperial concubine. It's just that I was sent to the cold palace as soon as I entered the palace. This is the cold palace. It's been more than 10 years since anyone has stepped in here. Then Jing Yu frowned as she looked at Yen, who was sitting at the side. She's the child of a palace maid and a bodyguard. The poor palace maid and bodyguard both died, so I saved this child and raised her. The woman looked at the little girl and said, I wanted to spend the rest of my life in the palace, but I didn't expect Nan Li to be destroyed. I'm called Xue Jing. The woman said slowly, I'm the daughter of a minister, but I was chosen by the emperor to enter the palace. I pretended to be ugly to avoid serving the emperor, but I also offended the emperor. I don't like conflict, and I just want to spend the rest of my life in peace. Now that Nan Li is destroyed, I have no place to go. Xue Jing lowered her head and said, How did you deal with the concubines? Of course we dismissed them. Those who didn't want to leave have already gone to sleep in the palace. Jing Yu looked at Xue Jing and sighed. The way Xue Jing spoke was like a painting. It seems like that was the reason for the commotion outside yesterday. Xue Jing lowered her head and said, I'm used to living here and I don't want to leave. It seems like there's no way to stay. Xue Jing smiled at Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglong and said, Why don't the two of you drink the tea? Speaking of which, the thing you miss the most is the spring scenery. Jing Yu frowned as if she wanted to say something, but she didn't know what to say. She pursed her lips and said, You can't stay in Nan Li's palace, you should find another place. That is fine. Xue Jing lowered her eyes. Really? Can we really leave? The little girl was very excited and happy. Jing Yu looked at the little girl's happy expression. Just as she was about to speak, she heard a noise coming from outside. The noise seemed to be a little loud. Jing Yu turned her head in surprise and looked out the window. She heard a dull sound coming from the door. It seemed like someone was banging on the door. Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglong looked at each other and walked outside. Xue Jing also stood up. When they reached the door, they heard the sound of the impact outside getting louder. Jingyu was about to speak when the door collapsed under everyone's gaze. Ninth Emperors, the door is open. Hearing this voice, Jingyu immediately raised her eyebrows with interest. She crossed her arms and looked towards the door. Sure enough, she saw Xiaochen walking in with Second Xing. As soon as he walked in, he saw Jingyu and the others. But there was a problem. When Xiaochen looked in the direction of Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan, his eyes didn't immediately lock onto Jingyu. When Xing Er looked over, he didn't look at Shangguan Linglan. The moment they looked over, their eyes landed on Xue Jing. Chapter 1450. Furthermore, Xue Jing had even attracted the attention of Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan. It was normal for her to attract the attention of Xiaoqin and Xing Er. Hence, the two of them didn't think much of it. However, what made Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan's faces turn ashen was that the two of them were looking, but why didn't they retract their gazes for a long time? That stunned and infatuated look was simply enough to make one go berserk at any moment. Jingyu couldn't hold it in any longer. Xiaoqin. When the earth-shattering roar came, Xiaoqin's body trembled violently. Then his gaze landed on Jingyu. Instantly, he seemed to realize what he had done and his eyes were filled with astonishment. Jingyu, listen to me, Xiaoqin said reflexively. Say what you want. Jingyu was instantly enraged. She looked as though she wanted to kill Xiaoqin as she said, "It's very beautiful, isn't it? You can't retract your gaze, can you? I'll show you. I'll show you." This. Xing Er looked at Jingyu and Xiaoqin's actions and silently swallowed his saliva. Then, as though he had thought of something, he looked at Shangguan Linglan and saw Shangguan Linglan's dark expression. Two words immediately appeared in his heart. It's over. It's not what you think. Xiaoqin opened his mouth to explain. However, just as Xiaoqin was about to explain and Xing Er was thinking about what to say, Xue Jing, who was standing at the side, saw Xiaoqin and Jingyu's expressions and instantly sneered. His curved eyebrows and blooming smile made even the world lose its color at this moment. Of course, Xiaoqin was also shocked. Ah, Xiaoqin, get lost. Jingyu was about to go crazy. She was originally waiting for Xiaoqin to explain, but she didn't expect to see Xiaoqin staring at Xue Jing in a daze. Xing Er also had the same expression. Today, you're not allowed to sleep on the bed, Jingyu said angrily. Then she lifted her foot and viciously stepped on Xiaoqin's foot. See. Xiaoqin inhaled a breath of cold air. His expression quickly changed. He looked at Jing, turned and left. Then turned to look at Xue Jing, who was still standing at the same spot. He suddenly felt an unspeakable bitterness. Shut up. Xing Er looked at Shangguan Linglan, who was walking over. Just as he was about to speak, he was stunned by Shangguan Linglan's cold shout. Then, Xiaoqin and Xing Er watched Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan leave. They felt aggrieved. They really didn't have any eyes. They only glanced at the woman and were curious about why such a woman was locked up in the palace. They really didn't have any other intentions. They were really wrongly accused. It was probably jealousy at work. She was such a beautiful woman. Just looking at her would make people think that they were attracted to her, or something like that. Now Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan felt the same way. Take these two people away. After seeing Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan leave with their own eyes, Xiaoqin and Xing Er looked at Xue Jing with extremely unfriendly gazes. With cold faces, they took Xue Jing and Xing Er away. Now, Xiaoqin and Xing Er only had one thought in their minds: how to coax their wives. Chapter 1451. Xiaoqin sighed deeply. He didn't know how many times he had sighed since he came back. He could hear the laughter of the two women in the room, but the door was tightly shut. They couldn't enter at all. Master, what do we do now? Xing Er was also frowning. He sighed deeply in his heart and turned to ask Xiaoqin. Xiaoqin turned his head and looked at the dark sky. He sighed deeply again and didn't say a word. Xue Jing left the next day. Sometimes, It was a sin to be too beautiful. Xue Jing probably understood this principle. Before she left, she deliberately disguised herself and changed into coarse linen clothes. Then she left the palace with Yan. Xue Jing said that she wanted to find a secluded place to live in seclusion. She didn't want to pay attention to the outside world. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan stood in front of the palace door and sent Xue Jing off. Before Xue Jing left, she looked at Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan with a slight smile. She said in a very light tone, "Those two men are sincere to you. I have seen many gazes. In their eyes, there is only surprise when they first met you. Please don't misunderstand." "Thank you." Jingyu was slightly taken aback by Xue Jing's words. Then, a gentle look appeared in her eyes. She said faintly, "Miss, have a safe trip." "I'm so envious." Xue Jing looked at Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan and said, "To have such feelings for each other, how blissful must it be?" After Xue Jing said this, she turned and left with Yan. Jingyu could hear a strong sense of envy in her words. A woman like her probably couldn't feel such passionate feelings. This face. Jingyu lowered her eyes slightly and looked at the departing Xue Jing. She raised her eyebrows slightly and looked at Shangguan Linglan. Then she turned and returned to the room. However, when she walked into the palace, she saw Xiao Chen and Xing Er standing around something. "Aprons? You're back." Xiao Chen, who never smiled in 10,000 years, was smiling so beautifully today. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan looked at the two men in front of them suspiciously. They couldn't help but have a faint thought. The two of them looked really good in aprons. "Come try it. I made it especially for you." Xiao Chen and Xing Er came forward at the same time and handed the chopsticks in their hands to Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan. "What are you doing?" Shangguan Linglan looked at the chopsticks in his hand and looked at Xing Er, who was grinning with a conflicted expression. Why did he look more and more like an idiot? If he didn't want to laugh, then don't laugh. "I cooked the noodles." Xing Er coughed slightly and pulled Shangguan Linglan to a chair at the side and said carefully, "I cooked the rice." Xiao Chen also pulled Jingyu to the other side and sat down. He looked at Jingyu with a smile and said. Jingyu looked at Xiao Chen suspiciously and said, "You didn't drug it, right?" "Ha! Do we look like people like that?" Xiao Chen laughed dryly and felt a lingering fear in his heart. Not long ago, when Xiao Chen and Xing Er were discussing how to coax Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan, they couldn't think of a solution. At that time, Xiao Chen said very viciously that if they couldn't coax them, then they would directly drug them and drag them back to the room. Chapter 1452. Now that Jingyu said this, Xiao Chen was speechless. Luckily, he didn't do such a stupid thing. He believed that he would die miserably if he had drugged her. "Yes, it's delicious." Jingyu took a bite and her eyes lit up. Xiao Chen's fried rice was so good. "Oh, not bad." Shangguan Linglan nodded. Xing Er looked at Shanghai Linglan and heaved a sigh of relief. "Not enough more?" Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan said at the same time. Xiao Chen and Xing Er didn't say anything and continued to cook. Later, the four of them ate together. No one knew what happened, but it was over. The people from the Tokyo arrived at this time. After Jingyu and Xiao Chen finished the handover, they led part of the army out of the palace. They couldn't reach the Holy Family from Nanli. Therefore, the army had to return to the Tokyo's territory first, then head directly to Yangzhou City. From there, they would take a boat to the Holy Family. The pace of the army was very fast. They didn't encounter any obstacles along the way. With such a large army, no one would dare to rob them. Only those who were tired of living would dare to rob them. On the hill, Jingyu sat on the grass and leaned on Xiao Chen. She smiled faintly as the wind blew. Jingyu was lost in thought as she looked at the blue sky. She seemed to hear voices. Jingyu turned her head and saw Shangguan Linglan and Xing Er talking not far away. Jingyu raised her eyebrows slightly when she saw Shangguan Linglan's bright smile, but she didn't say anything. "Xiao Chen." Jingyu was silent for a moment, then suddenly looked up at Xiao Chen and called out, Xiao Chen looked down at Jingyu and raised his eyebrows slightly. "When this is over, let Xing Er give a good betrothal gift and marry Linglan, Jingyu said seriously to Xiao Chen. When Xiao Chen heard Jingyu's words, he frowned and looked in the direction of Shangguan Linglan and Xing Er. He nodded and said, "Okay." When Jingyu heard Xiao Chen's reply, she nodded her head in satisfaction. Her eyes were shining brightly. Just as Jingyu and Xiao Chen were talking, they suddenly heard hurried footsteps behind them. Xing Er and Shangguan Linglan walked over, and so did Xing. When Jingyu turned her head, she saw the serious expressions on their faces. Her heart trembled violently, and the smile on her face slowly disappeared. "What's wrong?" Jingyu stood up, and Xiao Chen followed suit. He looked at Shangguan Linglan and Xing Er and asked, "Jingyu, something happened to Miaoqiu." Shangguan Linglan took a deep breath and handed the note in his hand to Jingyu. He said, "There's news from the imperial city. The Empress's bedroom was on fire, and the Emperor couldn't find her corpse. The Empress is missing." What? Jingyu's eyes widened slightly when she heard Shangguan Linglan's words. She lowered her head and looked at the note in her hand. Her expression changed rapidly, and she frowned deeply. "What do we do now?" Shangguan Linglan looked at Jingyu anxiously and asked. "Send someone to find out what's going on." Jingyu slowly put away the note in her hand. She thought of the words she said to Lu Miaoqiu before she left. As if she had thought of something, she turned to look at Xing Yi and asked, "What's the latest news from the Imperial Palace? Tell me everything that happened in the palace without leaving out a single word." Chapter 1453. Yes. Xing Yi could hear the seriousness in Jingyu's words. He slowly nodded and began to tell her everything that had happened in the palace. "What did you just say?" "The Emperor is choosing a consort." Jingyu had only just heard Xing Yi's words. She immediately widened her eyes in shock and shouted, "Yes, the Emperor is choosing a consort." Having been interrupted by Jingyu, Interrogation Officer 1 found it strange when he saw Jingyu's shocked expression. He blinked his eyes and replied. Hearing this, Jingyu sighed helplessly and looked at the note in her hand again. "What's wrong?" When Xiao Chen saw Jingyu's expression, he frowned in confusion and said, "It's normal for a new emperor to choose a consort. Is there a problem?" "Nothing." Jingyu slowly shook her head. Lu Miaoqiu's words echoed in her ears. In the end, Lu Miaoqiu still left. At that time, Lu Miaoqiu hadn't left. Jingyu thought that Lu Miaoqiu wasn't leaving. Now that she thought about it, it was probably because Lu Miaoqiu still had a trace of hope for Xiao Yuling at that time. In the end, he was the emperor. How could he only have one empress? If it was in the past, Lu Miaoqiu probably wouldn't have any objections. However, things were different now. Lu Miaoqiu had fallen in love with Xiao Yuling. This was something that couldn't be tolerated. It was good that she left. "Madam, what should we do now?" Xing Yi looked at the dazed Jingyu and asked with a slight frown. "Send someone to the northern pastoral to look for her." Jingyu slowly lowered her hand and said, "If you find her, don't leak the news to the processing area. Just kill me." Jingyu looked at Xing Yi and said slowly. Everyone was stunned. "Linglan, come with me." Jingyu thought for a moment and decided to tell Shangguan Linglan about this matter. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglan walked down the mountain. Xiao Chen, Xing Er, and the others were left on the hill. Xiao Chen looked at Jingyu's back and frowned slightly. There was definitely something fishy about Lu Miaoqiu's matter. However, Jingyu didn't seem to have any intention of telling him about it. What? This was planned by Miaoqiu? Shangguan Linglan jumped up in shock after hearing Jingyu's words. His eyes were filled with shock. Miaoqiu really fell in love with that sickly crown prince? Shangguan Linglan still hadn't recovered from his shock. He sat on the hill with a face full of shock. Jingyu slowly nodded and said, "She must have fallen in love with him. That's why she chose to escape in the end." Shangguan Linglan furrowed his brows tightly. "We still don't know if this was planned by Miaoqiu." Jingyu slowly looked into the distance and said, "I told Miaoqiu that if we really had to leave, we should go to the northern pastoral and see if there's any news from the northern pastoral. If there's no news, we'll have to be careful." Jingyu took a deep breath and said, "I hope all of this was planned by Miaoqiu. I hope nothing else happens." Shengguan Linglan slowly nodded and looked at the distant scenery in a daze. It took a lot of time to travel from Nanli to Tokyo. Just as Jingyu and Xiaochen entered Tokyo's territory, they met a few familiar faces on the road. They were really familiar faces. In the middle of the night, the sound of fighting was especially loud. Jingyu and the soldiers were directly awakened from their sleep and heard the chaotic sounds coming from outside. Jingyu and Xiaochen also came out of the tent. Chapter 1454. What's going on? Xiaochen furrowed his brows and his expression turned cold. Anyone would be in a bad mood if they were disturbed in the middle of their sleep. Ninth Emperors, there's a young man with a person who says he's looking for Lord Xing. The guard quickly bowed and reported. Looking for Xing Yi? Xiaochen responded to the guard's words and immediately turned his head in surprise. He thought about it for a moment and ordered his men to bring the person over. Jingyu and Xiaochen turned around and put on their clothes. They walked into the tent and saw an unfamiliar man standing guard by the side with a long sword in his hand. A woman was sleeping on the bed in the tent. When Jingyu and Xiaochen arrived, this was the scene they saw. Jingyu was shocked when she saw the woman lying on the bed. Su Yu? Jingyu involuntarily called out the woman's name. That's right. The woman lying on the bed covered in blood was the palace lord of Constellation Palace, Su Yu. Jingyu had met Su Yu before and naturally recognized her. However, she didn't expect Su Yu to become like this. Please save my sect lord. As soon as Jingyu finished speaking, the man standing by the bed suddenly knelt down and pleaded respectfully to Jingyu. What's going on? How did Su Yu become like this? Jingyu hurriedly asked the army doctor to treat her. As she spoke, Xing Yi also appeared. When he saw Su Yu lying on the bed, Xing Yi's eyes filled with panic. She was attacked. The man sat on a chair as the doctor bandaged the wound on his shoulder. He took a deep breath and looked at Jingyu, saying, Constellation Palace was destroyed. I don't know who did it. Sect Lord and I escaped all the way here. If we hadn't predicted your route and came to ask for help, perhaps. The man clenched his fists and took a deep breath before continuing. Sect Lord's whereabouts were so secretive this time, but she was still discovered. There must be a traitor in the palace. As the man spoke, his eyes were filled with anger. Jingyu frowned slightly. Constellation Palace was famous for selling information. The most likely situation was to offend others. Jingyu could guess the situation now. Seeing the man bandage his wound and put on his clothes, Jingyu nodded slowly. You guys should rest here first. Those people won't dare to come in. Jingyu exhaled slowly and said, Thank you. The man thanked Jingyu and Xiaochen deeply. Doctor, how is her condition? Xing Yi looked at the army doctor who was packing up and preparing to leave. He said, There are too many wounds on her body. She needs to be bandaged. I can't do it for her, the army doctor said helplessly. I'll do it. Xing Yi stepped forward without hesitation. I'll do it. The man beside him also stepped forward. The two of them said the same thing almost at the same time. After they finished speaking, they looked at each other. Their eyes showed that they didn't like each other. Jingyu frowned helplessly. Both of you get out. I'll do it. Jingyu stepped forward and pulled the two of them apart. It seemed that the man's feelings for Su Yu were not simple. She was really afraid that the two of them would fight here. Jingyu decisively chased the two of them out. Chapter 1455. According to the doctor's instructions, after applying medicine to Su Yu's wounds, he made a diagnosis. After confirming that she was fine, he breathed a sigh of relief. After tossing and turning for so long, Jingyu and Xiaochen were ready to go back to rest. Outside, the two men were once again arrogant and despotic because of who would guard Su Yu. Okay, you are injured, go and have a good rest. Xing Yi, you stay and guard. After Jingyu decisively finished the sentence, she turned and left. The man looked at Jingyu's back as she left. It seemed that he still wanted to say something, but Jingyu did not give him a chance to continue speaking and left. He had no choice but to think about it. He had to conserve his strength during the attack. Otherwise, how could he protect Su Yu? Thinking like this, he went to rest as he was told. Xing Yi had seen Su Yu's cheerful appearance too many times. He had seen Su Yu's healthy appearance, but he had never seen Su Yu's injured appearance. He had never seen Su Yu like this, lying quietly on the bed without any words. Xiao Yu? Xing Yi stood beside Su Yu's bed and looked at Su Yu's sleeping appearance. His brows furrowed tightly. Who dared to hurt you like this? The look in Xing Yi's eyes was so deep and terrible. His hand on the hilt of his sword clenched tightly. His heart was filled with a monstrous murderous aura, but when he looked at Su Yu, he slowly restrained it. He turned and walked out of the tent to guard outside. Su Yu opened her eyes amidst the hustle and bustle. The bright light in front of her was a little dazzling. Su Yu opened her confused eyes and looked at the scenery in front of her. She frowned slightly and moved her body. Suddenly she felt a strong pain. Su Yu's brows furrowed tightly. Looking at her clothes that had been changed, and then looking at the bandaged wound, there was a moment of coldness. How could she be here? Where was this? Wasn't she running for her life? Su Yu's head was full of questions, and her frown deepened. Just as Su Yu was deep in thought, the tent's curtain was lifted, and Interrogation Officer 1 walked in with a bowl of black medicine in his hands. When Su Yu raised her head to look, she saw Interrogation Officer 1. Her body immediately froze, and her eyes widened in an instant. Su Yu's eyes were filled with astonishment. You're awake? Why are you on the ground? Quickly lie down. Seeing that Su Yu had woken up, Interrogation Officer 1's eyes were also filled with surprise. He hurriedly put down the medicine in his hand and walked over to help Su Yu lie down again. You haven't recovered yet. Don't move around. Xing Yi's eyebrows were full of displeasure. The way he looked at Su Yu made Su Yu stunned for a while. She didn't know what was going on. Sect Master. Just as Su Yu was in a daze, she suddenly heard a joyful call. Su Yu turned her head and saw the man who lifted the curtain and strode in. It was the man who carried Su Yu here yesterday. Ling Yong, are you okay? Su Yu saw the man appear, and her eyes were filled with joy as she called out to him. I'm fine, Sect Master. Ling Yong saw that Su Yu had woken up, and his eyes were filled with excitement. He asked, Sect Master, do you feel uncomfortable anywhere? I'm fine. Su Yu shook her head slightly, and then looked at the surrounding scenery with some doubts. She frowned and asked, Where is this? This is the wilderness. Xing Yi stood aside and looked at Ling Yong and Su Yu's actions. He frowned slightly and picked up the medicine on the table. When he was about to walk towards Su Yu, Ling Yong snatched the medicine from Xing Yi's hand without saying a word. Chapter 1456. Looking at Ling Yong's actions, the expression on Interrogation Officer 1's face suddenly froze. Sect Master, it was the 9th Emperor's and the 9th Imperial concubine who saved us. Ling Yong walked to Su Yu's side with a bowl of medicine and said, We are now in the 9th Emperor's military tent. Sect Master, come and drink the medicine. I see. Su Yu nodded. No wonder she felt that this place didn't feel like a house. Su Yu raised her hand and took the bowl of medicine from Ling Yong's hand and drank it. When Jing Yu opened the curtain and walked in, she saw Su Yu finish drinking the medicine. She smiled and said, Sect Master Su, you're awake? Jing Yu's voice sounded. Su Yu looked up and saw Jing Yu, and her eyes slowly curved. Thank you, 9th Imperial concubine, for saving us. Su Yu nodded slightly and said, You helped me back then, so it's only right that I save you. How could Jing Yu forget Su Yu's help back then? Su Yu was taken aback by Su Yu's reply. She had only helped back then because of Interrogation Officer 1. Jing Yu couldn't possibly not know. Now that Jing Yu said this, did she mean that she helped because of Xing Yi? You're seriously injured. I was the one who helped you change your clothes yesterday. Jing Yu looked at Su Yu and said slowly, Have a good rest here. If you have something to say, we'll stay here for a while and won't leave. Thank you. When Su Yu heard Jing Yu's words, her expression changed slightly. She then slowly lowered her head and thanked her. Xing Yi, take good care of Sect Master Su. Jing Yu smiled and nodded. After she finished speaking to Interrogation Officer 1, She turned and left. Su Yu understood very well that Jing Yu had said that she would stop here. It was because of her that Jing Yu had stopped moving forward. This was probably repaying a debt of gratitude. Su Yu shook her head and laughed. She looked at Xing Yi, who was standing on the side. Her expression did not change. She lowered her eyes and said, "Sir Xing Yi, I'll have to trouble you." Xing Yi, who was standing to the side, froze when he heard Su Yu's words. He had never heard Su Yu speak so politely before. The moment Su Yu said those words, the distance between Xing Yi and Su Yu widened. The distance between them was so long. Interrogation Officer 1 couldn't even react for a moment. Su Yu closed her eyes slightly, and after saying that she was tired, she slowly lay down. Xing Yi stood stiffly in the same place, watching Ling Yong cover Su Yu with a quilt, while he stood in the same place, unable to do anything. Xing Yi looked at this scene and couldn't stay any longer. He turned and left. What Interrogation Officer 1 did not know was that when he turned around, Su Yu's gaze followed him as he left. She watched with her own eyes as Interrogation Officer 1 lifted the curtain and disappeared from her sight. Sectmaster, have a good rest. Ling Yong saw this scene and saw the loneliness in Su Yu's eyes. The expression on his face changed, and he bowed his head and said this to Su Yu before leaving. Su Yu's arrival delayed Xiao Chen and the others' original journey. In the tent, Jing Yu was reading a book in her hand. Xiao Chen was peeling grapes for Jing Yu. Jing Yu was enjoying herself, but before long, she was pulled out by Shangguan Linglan, who had nothing to do. "What are you doing? The sun is so bright." Jing Yu stood outside the tent with a heart full of hidden bitterness. She looked up at the sun hanging high in the sky, and the corners of her mouth twitched fiercely. Chapter 1457. Of course it's to shoot with me. Shangguan Linglan was about to go crazy from being cooped up in the tent for the past few days. What? Jing Yu heard Shangguan Linglan's words and her mouth twitched. She looked at Shangguan Linglan as if she was looking at an idiot and said, "The sun is so bright. You're actually here to shoot. Did you take your medicine?" "I'm really too bored." Shangguan Linglan scratched his head as if he was about to go crazy. He looked at Jing Yu and begged, "Just play with me. If this goes on, I won't be able to hold myself back and look for a fight." Jing Yu's mouth twitched fiercely. Looking at Shangguan Linglan's appearance, she looked as if she had been defeated. Jing Yu sighed and said, "Since you're so bored, why don't we go hunting in the forest?" "Hunting?" Shangguan Linglan heard Jing Yu's words and his eyes were filled with surprise. He dragged Jing Yu into the forest and shouted, let's go hunting." Clothes. Change into a new set of clothes. Jing Yu looked at Shangguan Linglan with a conflicted expression and said, "Are you going to wear this set of clothes to hunt?" Shangguan Linglan heard Jing Yu's words and looked down at his clothes. He smiled awkwardly and returned to the tent. After changing into light casual clothes, he took his bow and arrows and followed Jing Yu into the forest. When Xiao Chen found out that Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan were going to hunt in the forest, he only reminded them to be careful and didn't say anything to stop them. Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan walked among the trees, looking a little absent-minded. Looking at the trees in front of them, they suddenly thought of the time when they were in Jinling, in the Roman forest. Jing Yu and Shangguan Linglan also went hunting together. "The air outside is still the best," Shangguan Linglan said with a sigh. "Yeah." Jing Yu's lips curved into a faint smile and said, "But, we've been walking for so long, why haven't we seen any prey?" "That's true." Shangguan Linglan and Jing Yu stood under a withered tree and looked at the forest in the distance. They frowned, conflicted. Could it be that this place to be too small? Was there no prey because it wasn't as big as the Roman forest? That shouldn't be the case. Jing Yu frowned and looked around. Then, she waved at Shangguan Linglan and walked forward again. The two of them had only walked a short distance when Jing Yu suddenly smelled a strange smell. That smell burrowed into Jing Yu's nostrils and caused Jing Yu to stop in her tracks. Her golden-green eyes narrowed. "Don't breathe!" Jing Yu hurriedly shouted. She covered her mouth and nose with her hand and shook her head at Shangguan Linglan. Shangguan Linglong held his breath and glanced at Jingyu. Then he followed behind Jingyu, pushed aside the weeds in front of him, and stepped into the forest. The moment Jingyu and Shangguan Linglong stepped into the forest, they were stunned by the scene before them. What was revealed in the open space was so shocking. 5 or 6 burly men were lying on the ground, surrounded by pitch-black blood. The smell came from the blood and the corpses. It was as if thick black smoke was rising from the ground. All the grass around the corpses had withered. Chapter 1458. What a potent poison! Who could have killed all these people and poisoned them with such a potent poison? Jingyu looked at the burly man. He didn't look like a man from the pugilistic world. Instead, he looked more like a woodcutter from the mountains. How could he be so vicious as to lay his hands on the commoners? Jingyu furrowed her brows tightly. She glanced sideways at Shangguan Linglong before she stood up and walked away. Jingyu had originally thought that this was some sort of vendetta. However, after taking a few steps, she saw the same scene again. Furthermore, after Jingyu and Shangguan Linglong discovered a few more corpses, Jingyu finally discovered the root of the problem. The place where these people had died was where the water from the mountain spring flowed downwards. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglong walked for a long time before they stood beside the clear water. Linglong, have you discovered it? Jingyu tilted her head and looked in the direction where the water flowed downwards. The expression on her face changed little by little. I've discovered it. Shangguan Linglong's expression also gradually turned cold. Just as Jingyu and Shangguan Linglong were about to speak, they suddenly heard an extremely terrified scream coming from the mountain forest. Jingyu's eyes narrowed and she quickly ran towards the source of the sound. Shangguan Linglong followed closely behind her. 2 pitch-black figures could be seen clearly in the dense forest. They were standing on an open space not too far away. Jingyu saw with her own eyes that the 2 men in black had a death grip on a man's neck. They then poured a large bottle of medicine into the man's mouth. When they saw the man collapse with a face full of fear, one of the men in black stepped forward and slit the man's wrist, allowing the pitch-black blood to flow out. The blood stained the mountain spring and trickled down into the river. The 2 black-clothed men quietly finished all of this. Just as they were about to turn and leave, Jingyu pulled the bough hidden behind the tree without hesitation and suddenly shot at the black-clothed man. The cold arrow pierced through the black-clothed man's shoulder, bringing with it a spray of blood. The 2 men in black who were about to leave suddenly paused and turned around in a panic. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglong leaped out and chased after the 2 men without hesitation. Jingyu also shot the hidden weapon in her hand without hesitation. Tisk! The hidden weapon pierced the man in black's flesh. However, the man in black didn't slow down in the slightest. He turned around and left without hesitation. Jingyu and Shangguan Linglong chased after him for a while. Jingyu, look at this. Shangguan Linglong's voice sounded in her ear. Jingyu hurriedly turned around and walked over. This is... Shangguan Linglong pointed at the item that had fallen on the ground. He didn't reach out to pick it up. Why does this token look so familiar? Jingyu looked at the pitch-black token in front of her. Her eyes were filled with confusion. She furrowed her brows as if she had thought of something and her pupils suddenly shrank. Not good. Jingyu suddenly stood up. What's wrong? Shangguan Linglong asked with a slight frown when he saw the change in Jingyu's expression. This water is poisonous. Jingyu's heart trembled violently as she said, the army is stationed here. The water that they drink comes from here. What? Shangguan Linglong's expression changed rapidly when he heard Jingyu's words. The 2 of them looked at each other. They couldn't care less about anything else and quickly walked towards the camp. There was only one thought in their minds, and that was to hope that the 2 of them would make it in time. Chapter 1459. It was already noon. When Jingyu and Shangguan Linglong rushed to the tent, there was already smoke coming from the kitchen. Jingyu saw the smoke from the kitchen not far away and became even more anxious. When Jingyu and Shangguan Linglong arrived, they immediately saw the group of soldiers holding bowls and chopsticks and eating heartily. Their faces were full of smiles. Stop! Don't eat. When Jingyu saw this scene, her eyes were filled with fear. Probably because she ran too fast, her forehead was full of sweat. Jingyu panted slightly and thought of Xiao Chen in the tent. Her eyes widened slightly. If the soldiers were eating, then Xiao Chen and the others in the tent must be eating too. At this moment, Jingyu did not even explain and rushed into Xiao Chen's tent. Xiao Chen, don't eat. It's poisonous. Jingyu rushed in a panic. She did not even see the scene in front of her and shouted this sentence. Then, when Jingyu saw the scene in front of her clearly, her eyes widened slightly. The anxiety on her face faded little by little. Looking at the few people in front of her, Jingyu frowned slightly and asked, "This is?" In this tent, Xiao Chen, Xing Yi, and Xing Er were in the same room. There was also another person in the room. "Qinggu? Why are you here?" Jingyu looked at the scene in front of her and her mind went blank. "Ninth sister-in-law, you're back? Long time no see." Qinggu bowed slightly to Jingyu. The smile on his face made Jingyu frown even deeper. "What's going on?" After Jingyu sat down with a face full of confusion, she heard Xiao Chen say, "Qinggu just arrived. After you and Linglan left, Qinggu came. He had been following us along the way and only managed to catch up when we stopped now." "Then what about the food?" Jingyu stared at the food and asked. "The water is poisonous. Qinggu sensed it a long time ago and came because of this." Xiao Chen narrowed his eyes and said, "But don't worry, the poison in the water that the soldiers drank has been neutralized. It's very safe now." "That's good." Jingyu heard Xiao Chen's words and slowly heaved a sigh of relief. "I was just discussing with ninth brother where the poison came from." Seeing ninth sister-in-law's expression, "You probably already know, right?" Qinggu turned to look at Jingyu and asked. "Yes." Jingyu nodded slowly and said, "Linglan and I went hunting in the cold forest. We didn't expect to encounter two men in black. They killed people and poured poison into their mouths. Then they let their blood flow. The blood flowed into the drinking water." "Killed people and let their blood flow?" Qinggu frowned when he heard Jingyu's description. It was as though he was thinking about something. Qingji's expression changed little by little. "Yes, we also found something in the field." Jingyu picked up a brush and paper from the table and drew as she said, "We didn't pick it up because we were afraid that there was poison on it. It's like this." Jingyu really couldn't handle the brush and could only draw a rough outline of its appearance and characteristics. Qinggu raised his hand and took the portrait. When Qinggu saw the portrait that Jingyu handed to him, he was speechless. What the hell was she drawing? Chapter 1460. Hey, what's with that look? When Jingyu caught Qingji's gaze, she exclaimed in annoyance, "I drew it very clearly, all right? Don't laugh. Hurry and look at what this is." Hem. Qinggu coughed and said, "I've taken a quick look at it. If I'm not mistaken, the token you drew should belong to someone from the poison sect. Ninth sister, did you just say that the black-robed man dropped this token?" Jingyu slowly nodded. "The poison sect? Qinggu nodded. "This is the symbol of the poison sect. It seems that the person who poisoned them is from the poison sect?" A dog really can't change its spots." Jingyu's eyes hardened as she slowly lowered her head. "It looks like Yunjing's message has arrived. I just didn't expect the poison sect to be so arrogant. That's fine too, I'll play with them." Jingyu sat on a wide chair, her eyes filled with ice. "Ninth sister-in-law, what do you plan to do?" Qinggu turned to Jingyu. "Nothing." Jingyu narrowed her eyes carelessly. "Since the poison sect has already made their decision, what we need to do now is wait for a good show to come knocking on our door." "How's Su Yu's recovery?" As Jingyu spoke, she changed the topic and turned to ask Interrogation Officer 1. Replying to Madam, "She's almost recovered." Xing Yi slowly lowered his head and replied respectfully, "Since that's the case, have everyone pack up. We'll continue on our journey in 3 days." Jingyu calmly turned to Xing Yi and said, "Su Yu is the Palace Lord of Constellation Palace. We're going to the Holy Family now. Once Su Yu's injuries have healed, she can leave whenever she wants." You should know that we're going to battle. I'm sure Su Yu will understand what I mean. Jing Yu's lips curved as she spoke. Xing Yi nodded in agreement. After learning that the food wasn't poisoned, he naturally ordered the soldiers to continue eating. Jing Yu was also unbearably hungry, so she began to gorge herself. Xing Yi followed Jing Yu's instructions and arrived at Su Yu's tent. When he arrived, he saw Su Yu carefully walking around the room. Her small face was much rosy, and her clear eyes slightly tilted as she spoke to Ling Yong. Lord Xing. When Xing Yi stepped into the tent, Su Yu looked over. When she saw Xing Yi standing in front of the tent, Su Yu's face stiffened, and the smile that was originally blooming on her face stiffened. She nodded slightly at Xing Yi and called out in a very distant and polite manner. Xing Yi probably hated this annoying form of address. When he heard Su Yu call out his name, he furrowed his brows tightly, as if he was suppressing something. He said coldly, "Master has ordered us to continue on our journey in 3 days. Lord Su, please make a decision as soon as possible. The journey to the Holy Family is long and arduous. Lord Su knows how difficult it is." After Xing Yi finished speaking, he didn't even look at Su Yu. He cupped his hands indifferently and turned to leave. When Su Yu heard First Xing's words, she stood where she was. First Xing's repeated mention of sect master Su made Su Yu's heart turn cold instantly. She slowly lowered her head and her expression changed. Then she took small steps and sat down at the side. Chapter 1461. Sect Master? Ling Yong frowned slightly when he saw Su Yu's actions. "I know what you're trying to say." Su Yu lowered her head with a bitter smile and said, "Now that the Constellation Palace has fallen, I'm afraid we can't return for the time being. Staying in the army is the best protection for us, but Xiao Chen's meaning is clear. He saved us once, so we're even. If we want to stay, how can we not pay a price?" Su Yu laughed involuntarily and said, "As expected of someone from the Nether sect. They're so calculative." "Then what do you plan to do, sect master?" Ling Yong asked with a frown. "Xiao Chen is going for the Holy Family. Our choice is probably to follow him." Su Yu slowly lowered her head and said, "But, for me, Su Yu, to end up like this, I can't be the only one like this. Go and pass the news to Feng Maching and Feng Ling. The livelier this scene, the better." Ling Yong's expression flickered when he heard Su Yu's words. He lowered his head and acknowledged. "Sect Master." Ling Yong seemed to have thought of something. He lowered his head slowly and said, "Sect Master, you can leave. Why do you want to stay? Although it'll be difficult to leave, I can protect you." After hearing Ling Yong's words, the expression on Su Yu's face changed rapidly. She turned to look at Ling Yong and said, "Within the Constellation Palace, the only person I can rely on is you. If you make the slightest mistake again, what do you want me to do?" Sect Leader. Upon hearing Su Yu's words, Ling Yong's heart trembled violently and he lowered his head in a fluster. The hand by his side clenched tightly as he pursed his lips and turned to leave without saying a word. Su Yu looked at Ling Yong's departing figure and sighed slowly. She didn't say another word. In the tent, Xing Yi looked at the ointment in his hand and asked Qingge with a puzzled expression, "Lord Qingge, can this ointment really remove scars?" Qingge exploded when he heard Xing Yi's doubtful question. "Nonsense. Forget it if you don't want it. This young master only has a few bottles." Qingge raised his hand to take the medicine bottle from Xing Yi's hand. Xing Yi quickly took a step back and hid the medicine bottle. He bowed slightly to Qingge and said, "Thank you, Lord Qingge." "Get lost." Qingge looked at Xing Yi's appearance and waved his hand disdainfully. Xing Yi left embarrassedly. He held the porcelain bottle in his hand and rubbed it slightly. Then he turned and walked toward Su Yu's tent. While walking, Xing Yi looked a little absent-minded. Su Yu had always said that she cared a lot about her face. She didn't want any scars to be left on her body. Now that she was injured, Xing Yi could only think of looking for Qingge to get the medicine to remove scars. While Xing Yi was reminiscing, he was already standing in front of Su Yu's tent. Looking at the flickering lights in the room, Xing Yi slightly tightened his grip on the porcelain bottle. After struggling for a while, he stepped into the tent. The moment Xing Yi opened the curtain, he was still thinking about what to say. But he didn't expect that the moment he stepped into the tent, Xing Yi's footsteps completely froze. The woman who was sitting on the bed with half of her clothes off had a clear scar on her back. It seemed that she didn't expect someone to break in so late at night. She panicked a little and pulled a piece of clothing from the side and put it on. Chapter 1462. When Su Yu saw that it was Interrogation Officer 1, her body visibly stiffened. Her brows furrowed tightly, as if she had thought of something, and a faint blush appeared on her cheeks. I didn't expect. Xing Yi heard Su Yu's voice and suddenly came back to his senses. He said this in a panic and turned to leave. However, he thought of the thing in his hand and hesitated for a moment before turning around again. I'm here to give you something. Xing Yi turned around and put the medicine bottle on the table. He said, this is medicine to remove scars. After Su Yu heard Xing Yi's words, the expression on her face quickly changed. Then, as if she had thought of something, she turned to look at Interrogation Officer 1 and called out. Interrogation Officer 1 turned his head in response and met Su Yu's burning gaze. I'll leave first. Have a good rest. Looking at Su Yu's gaze, Xing Yi's heart couldn't help but beat faster. He pursed his lips and left without saying a word. Su Yu looked at Xing Yi's departing footsteps and opened her mouth slightly to call out to Xing Yi. However, the call was stuck in her throat and she couldn't say a word. Xing Yi stepped out of the tent. The night wind blew and calmed down Xing Yi's chaotic heartbeat. In the tent, Su Yu reached out and picked up the porcelain bottle on the table. There was a complicated look in her eyes. That jade bottle was probably being held tightly by Interrogation Officer 1. At this moment, there was still some warmth on the jade bottle, the warmth of his palm. Su Yu's eyes softened. She took the jade bottle and walked towards the bed. She stared at the curtain and was lost in thought. Jing Yu had already expected that Su Yu would stay. After 3 days, Xiao Chen and Jing Yu led a large group of people on the road again. On this road, they were heading towards the Holy Family. This road was undoubtedly long. If it was just Xiao Chen, Jing Yu, and a few others, the road would probably be shorter. However, with such a large number of people, it was impossible to speed up. There were so many soldiers, and in order to not cause panic, they naturally had to take a detour. This detour was much longer than before. On the way to Yangzhou, the road was quite far. When they went around the plains, they met some unexpected people. Feng Moqing. Jing Yu heard her subordinate report that a man called Feng Moqing was blocking the road. Go and bring him here. Jing Yu frowned slightly. She set up a tent at the edge of the plains and looked at the person in the distance. The man in rose-red clothes was twisting his waist and walking towards Jing Yu and Xiao Chen. It's so hot. It's so hot. Feng Moqing fanned himself and glared at Xiao Chen coquettishly. He said, hurry up and get out of the way. The sun is so hot that it's going to burn me to death. Jing Yu and Xiao Chen were stunned as they watched Feng Moqing walk into the room and pour himself tea. Jing Yu watched as Feng Moqing delicately wiped the sweat off his forehead and drank an entire pot of water. She was simply stunned by the scene in front of her. When Feng Moqing finally calmed down, Jing Yu and Xiao Chen came back to their senses. Why are you here? Xiao Chen looked at Feng Moqing and asked with a frown. Of course I'm here for you. Feng Moqing coquettishly winked at Xiao Chen and said, I heard that you're going to the Holy Family? This lord has never been to the Holy Family. Naturally, I want to take advantage of this opportunity to follow you to see it. Chapter 1463. Xiao Chen frowned when he heard Feng Moqing's words. He said coldly, why do you have to do this? This king didn't invite you. Oh my. Feng Moqing was unhappy when he heard Xiao Chen's drawing. He glared angrily and said, I will do whatever I want. Besides, I'm here to protect Sister Yu. I can't let a beauty like her get hurt. Jing Yu's mouth twitched when she heard that. Don't let the people from Sunluo Tower come looking for trouble. Xiao Chen leaned back slowly, and his cold eyes made Feng Maching's mouth twitch fiercely. He tilted his head and said, "You don't have to worry about it." Jingyu frowned when she saw the two of them echoing each other. Feng Maching's arrival undoubtedly made the tent lively. The group also became lively. "Oh my, isn't this sect Master Suyu? It hasn't been long since we last met and you've already made yourself look like this." Feng Maching immediately went to Suyu's tent. The moment he opened his mouth, he was so sarcastic and ridiculing, causing Ling Yong to furrow his brows. "I'm not dead. I'm sorry to disappoint Tower Master Feng." Suyu looked at Feng Maching from the corner of her eyes and said disdainfully. Feng Maching's mouth twitched when he heard that. "You're the one who sent me the news, right?" Feng Maching sat at the table and stared at Suyu with his dark eyes. He said disdainfully, "I didn't expect our sect Master Su to be so scheming. How interesting." Peh. Suyu smiled faintly and said, "Isn't this what you've always wanted?" "How boring." Feng Maching looked at Suyu's indifferent expression and the corners of his mouth twitched in displeasure. He glared at Suyu and said unhappily, "This lord is worried about you, so I came to see you. You don't even know how to say something nice." Suyu's mouth twitched when she heard Feng Maching's words. Who was the one who started it? While Feng Maching was talking to Suyu, Jingyu rubbed the space between her eyebrows with a headache. Why did Feng Maching, this transvestite, come? Her days in the future would not be easy. Thinking about it, Jingyu became even more irritated and frowned fiercely. "What's wrong?" Xiaochen looked at Jingyu and raised his eyebrows. He raised his hand and touched Jingyu's face. "Nothing." Jingyu was distracted. "Xiaochen." Xiaochen felt a little strange under Jingyu's gaze. Just as he was about to open his mouth to ask, he heard an announcement from outside the tent saying that Jing Lang and the others had arrived. Jingyu and Xiaochen both straightened up when they heard this. Jing Lang naturally came here for the war. What to do next, what to do, and what to do, all of these had to be planned out clearly. Jingyu's expression did not change when she saw the group of people walking in. However, when she saw Helian Xiu walking in from behind Jing Lang, her entire body trembled. Suddenly, she seemed to have thought of something and her eyes widened abruptly. She had forgotten that Helian Theo was also in the group. The northern pastoral soldiers were all on the other side. Helian Theo almost never came out. Jingyu had forgotten about Helian Theo these days. Now that she saw Helian Theo, she felt like she had seen her savior. Chapter 1464. The Ninth Imperial Concubine? What's wrong? Is something the matter? After discussing some matters in the tent, Helian Theo, who was about to leave, stopped him. "This." Jingyu's car sped out quickly. She didn't know what to say for the time being. She frowned slightly as if she was thinking of how to make Helian Theo stay. Helian Theo raised his eyebrows slightly. He didn't know why, but when he saw Jingyu's expression, he suddenly became alert. It was as if he sensed that something bad was about to happen. Jingyu looked at Helian Theo and said, "Stay for dinner tonight." What? Helian Theo raised his eyebrows in surprise when he heard Jingyu's words. He felt even more strange. He frowned at Jingyu and said, "You're not thinking of murdering me, are you?" How is that possible?" Jingyu laughed loudly. She reached out and grabbed Helian Theo. Without saying anything, she dragged Helian Theo into the tent. She also left Jing Lang behind so that Helian Theo wouldn't suspect anything. Jingyu's strange behavior made Helian Theo feel extremely strange. Especially, it was fine that Helian Theo was left behind, but why was he asked to take a bath and change into a new set of clothes? This strange feeling made Helian Theo's hair stand on end. He shook his body violently and looked sideways at Jingyu and Jing Lang. The two of them were chatting happily. "Big brother, tell me more about Mother. What is she like?" Jingyu asked curiously as she supported her chin with one hand and blinked at Jing Lang. "Mother, Jing Lang's eyes were filled with gentleness. The corner of his mouth hooked up into a faint smile as he said, "Mother is very gentle, she always likes." Jing Lang's words were filled with reminiscence. Jingyu raised her head and listened seriously. It was as if she was trying to picture her mother's appearance in her mind. Xiao Chen and Helian Theo were sitting not far away. They narrowed their eyes as they watched Jing Yu and Jing Lang talk. Helian Theo, Northern Pastoral shouldn't have intervened in the battle of the Holy Family. Why are you still here? Xiao Chen's expression didn't change at all. He tilted his head and looked at Helian Xiu as he spoke indifferently. If I didn't intervene, wouldn't my days would be boring? When Helian Xiu heard Xiao Chen's words, he pursed his lips indifferently and replied, "What? Do you think I'm here for something? What else do you want?" Xiao Chen smiled disdainfully. Helian Theo's face instantly darkened. He really hated Xiao Chen's arrogance. "I really hope you'll lose your memory forever. Won't I have another chance?" Helian Theo said with a smile. The corners of his lips curled up into a devilish smile. If it was in the past, Xiao Chen's expression would have changed instantly. But today, after Helian Theo said this, Xiao Chen smiled faintly. He stood up and looked at Helian Theo. He smiled meaningfully and said, "Helian Theo, you won't have another chance." When Helian Theo heard Xiao Chen's words and thought of Xiao Chen's smile, his eyebrows twitched violently. He seemed to have thought of something. The strange feeling in his heart became even stranger. Chapter 1465. If Helian Xiu knew what was going to happen next, he would definitely run away immediately when he felt strange in his heart. However, the problem was that Helian Theo didn't run away. He really stayed for dinner. This afternoon was incomparably peaceful, and nothing strange happened. Finally, it was time to eat. Helian Theo walked towards the tent with light steps from the grass. As he approached, he could hear the lively chatter. Helian Theo frowned slightly. Was there someone else? Helian Theo thought, but his footsteps didn't stop. He casually walked into the tent. The man in black who bent over and walked into the tent had a peerless face. There was no expression on his face. Even though he was dressed in dark black, one could feel a deep sense of amazement when they looked at him. It was as if the man in black was wearing a stunning red robe. His calm face made it seem as if he had never seen a man with such a beautiful appearance. "Helian Theo, you're here." Jing Yu tilted her head slightly and glanced at Feng Maching. Sure enough, she saw that Feng Maching, who was originally very casual, suddenly froze the moment he saw Helian Xiu. He raised his hand and seemed to be very embarrassed as he tidied his hair. "Yes." Helian Theo responded faintly. He didn't seem to find anything strange. He casually sat down on an empty seat at the side. As soon as he sat down, he suddenly felt that the atmosphere at the table was a little strange. He frowned and looked around at everyone with a questioning gaze. "Ah." Jing Yu laughed and said, "This is Feng Maching, the Tower Master of Sunluo Tower. Today, we're hosting a banquet to welcome Tower Master Feng. Everyone make yourselves at home." When Helian Theo heard Jing Yu's introduction, his gaze landed on Feng Maching. His eyes flickered slightly as he looked at Feng Maching's clothes. He expressionlessly nodded at Feng Maching as a greeting. "Helian Theo? Aren't you the new king of the Northern Pastoral region?" The corner of Feng Maching's mouth slowly curled up into a faint smile as he threw a coquettish glance at Helian Xiu and asked. When Helian Theo saw Feng Maching winking at him, his hand that was holding the chopsticks trembled violently. He seemed to have thought of something and looked at Feng Maching strangely. When Jing Yu saw this scene from the side and saw Helian Theo's expression, she almost laughed out loud. "Let's eat, let's eat." In order to hide her laughter, Jing Yu called out to everyone to eat. It's been a long time since I sat with Big Brother. Xiao Chen, switch seats with Tower Master Feng." Jing Yu pushed Xiao Chen and said. When Xiao Chen heard Jing Yu's words, he frowned slightly and lowered his head to look at Jing Yu. His eyes were filled with displeasure. "Go quickly." Jing Yu glared at Xiao Chen, her eyes filled with warning. When Xiao Chen heard Jing Yu's words, his hand paused slightly, but he still obeyed and switched seats with Feng Maching. Feng Maching beautifully sat next to Helian Theo. Originally, this was already extremely stunning from afar. Unexpectedly, when seen up close, it could instantly make one's heart beat faster. Feng Maching tilted his head and looked at Hellion Theo in a daze. That flirtatious face was so stunning. Hellion Theo, who was leisurely eating, seemed to feel Feng Maching's gaze. He frowned slightly and turned to look at Feng Maching. Chapter 1466. Feng Maching probably didn't expect Hellion Theo to look over. That pair of clear, pitch-black eyes stared straight at him, causing Feng Maching's heart to pause for a moment when it came into contact with Hellion Theo's eyes. "What's the matter?" Hellion Theo looked at Feng Maching and calmly spat out 3 words. "Such a beauty, such a beauty." Feng Maching stared blankly at Feng Maching as he spat out these words. Hellion Theo's face instantly darkened when he heard Feng Maching's words. Jingyu laughed out loud without any trace of politeness. The expression on Hellion Xiu's face darkened even more. Feng Maching seemed to have just returned to his senses, and very bashfully pursed his lips into a smile as he opened his mouth and said, "I was just stunned by young Master Hellien's appearance, so I couldn't help." Jingyu laughed out loud again. She hurriedly raised her hand to cover her mouth and looked up. However, she saw Hellion Theo's instantly ashen face with her own eyes. The expression on his face was simply incomparably fascinating. "Brothel Master Feng, please conduct yourself with dignity." Hellion Theo simply gritted his teeth and said these words. Jingyu, who was beside him, was about to get cramps from laughing. "Ha! You're annoying." Feng Maching waved his hand coquettishly and said the word, "annoying." Jingyu clearly felt Hellion Xiu's expression stiffen almost instantly. Then, under everyone's gaze, he jumped up as if he had seen a ghost and distanced himself from Feng Maching. "I still have something to do, so I'll take my leave first." Hellion Theo's movements were so big that the bowls and chopsticks on the table shook a little frighteningly. Hellion Theo silently swallowed his saliva and cupped his hands slightly towards Xiaochen, Jingyu, and the others. Without waiting for their reaction, he abruptly turned around and left. "Huh!" Feng Maching sat in his original position and blinked as he watched Hellion Theo leave just like that. Why did he leave just like that? Feng Maching seemed to be very displeased as he blinked his eyes. He's shy. Jingyu sat up straight and looked at Feng Maching seriously as she spoke. "Aya! How likable!" After hearing Jingyu's words, Feng Maching's eyes instantly lit up and the corners of his mouth slightly curved up. He looked in the direction where Hellion Theo left, as if he was thinking of something. This meal was very interesting. Jing Lang and the rest didn't feel anything, but Hellion Xiu had successfully welcomed his own nightmare. Of the two's arrival, Xiaochen was? TSSS 8 A with TDS S-ats. Ha! Xiaochen, it's been a while. In this tent, Jingyu and Xiaochen sat in the main seats. Below them sat 2 other people. The 2 almost identical baby face made Jingyu's mouth twitch violently. "Why are you here?" Xiaochen stared at the 2 people in front of him with his pitch-black eyes and asked coldly. "I heard that you're going to the Holy Family. This leader has yet to see what the Holy Family looks like, so of course I'm going to take a look." Wasn't the person in front of him, who clearly looked aloof but had a baby face, Feng Ling? I didn't want to come." The person sitting at the side was naturally Feng Yu. She glared angrily with her big, watery eyes. "You're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.